Hello everyone and welcome to our today's webinar. This webinar is going to be about inspiration from fashion industry on social media. What will we cover during today is how fashion actually acts on social media, who are some top performers and top performing content on different social media platforms, and we will touch what are the best practices and top case studies for inspiration from fashion. Now, to go on, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Rudolf and I'm a product marketing manager at Socialbakers. If you do not know Socialbakers, it's a leading company that is dedicated to social media analytics and social media measurement. Our mission is to educate marketers with insight-driven analytics to make their lives easier, faster, and smarter. Please make sure to check socialbakers.com. You can learn more about our products there, but there is plenty of knowledge and plenty of resources that I would definitely recommend you to check, not only on fashion, but on various areas of social media measurement. So what we will cover today, as I said, we'll talk about fashion brands and social media. We'll look into top performing brands per platform and also top performing content. And then I have here as a guest speaker my colleague Mikhail Komry, who is from Professional Services, Socialbakers Professional Services team, and she will walk you through some best practices and recommendations, and she will also show you a fashion case study. And at the end of the webinar, there is a space for questions. So definitely feel free to ask. Feel free to ask also during the webinar. We might stop and answer the question on an ongoing basis every couple of slides. So let's start talking about fashion and fashion brands in social space. I think social media is definitely a huge marketplace for fashion brands. Obviously, we can see it on all types of brands, on all types of fashion, from high-end luxury fashion brands to small companies and boutiques. Really, the fashion world loves social media and was one of the industries that adopted it really, really fast. You can find fashion brands on social basically everywhere. You can run into them on traditional global social media platforms such as our Facebook, Twitter, Google+. Definitely you can find them on platforms that are focused a lot around content and a lot around the visual content. Examples of these platforms would be definitely Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, or YouTube. And you can, of course, find them also regionally. In this small overview I put here, I gave as an example a VK or a Weibo, because fashion brands are really, it's a type of an industry that has a global presence and definitely a global ambitions when it comes to social media. Now in this webinar, we will be focusing on 4 platforms. It would be a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And we will try to kind of present you some top examples, top performers, also some interesting marketing takeaways to allow you to learn more about the industry, learn more about how fashion is doing, but also to take some inspiration, because fashion brands are often really, really progressive. They use a lot of visual content and attractive new ways how to engage their audience, and that's where fashion is really strong at. Now, when I'm talking about success, it's kind of I'll show you what we call Socialbakers recommended workflow, and that's kind of 3 principles that we always focus and recommend to the brands. This workflow is kind of analyze, engage, promote. Now, when I'm talking about analysis, obviously we are an analytics company. It's about deeply understanding your own performance in terms of various metrics. This might be example of the fashion industry, I would probably go by the audience size, engagement, reach, but many more metrics. We always say it's not about one metric. It's kind of about all of them. And mainly the analytical part is also putting your data into context. It's not only about your own performance, but it's also a lot about your competitors and other pages competing for the audience that you are trying to reach. Now, when we talk about engage, it's a lot about kind of engaging your audience, but it's a lot about kind of basing your, kind of adapting your social media strategy based on the insights that you get from the analytics. It's also about kind of ensuring that you have top content organically, which is an important part. That is also connected with the third area, which is the promote of the workflow, and obvious the logic is using smartly paid advertising when it comes to social. And when I'm talking about a smart way, it's about really mostly picking the content that works really well organically and amplifying it by paid media, so it really can jump up. We have a first question here, which is kind of what are the KPIs for fashion? This really depends. It depends per platform and per your kind of a social media goals or social media strategy. It will be probably slightly different from a high-end fashion, brands like Dior or Chanel that are not really using social as kind of a selling channel. For them, it will be more about reach, more about activation, more about engagement, getting people excited, and kind of going after the brand awareness metrics. So it would be growth of audience, definitely reach, definitely engagement. Now, if I would be, of course, a fashion retailer, I would be probably focusing more about click-through, reach, trying to track what are the people that are driven from social into my e-shop, what is really generating money for me. So the KPIs, the strategy, it always should be connected with your business goals and with your general approach to social, what you expect, what you plan. Now, I have a question here from Vincent, who is talking about benchmark for engagement for brands. I'll be talking about it on each platform. For each platform, for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, I have some benchmarking information which will tell you what's the averages when it comes to interactions, what's the average when it comes to fan growth and various other metrics. So I think we are getting there. As I said before, we'll be looking for these 4 platforms. How we chose them, I decided to choose global presence platforms like Facebook and Twitter, which represent what we call a connection networks. It's a lot about the connections. And then I chose 2 content networks on which fashion is really strong, which by my choice is Instagram and YouTube, kind of having both visual images a lot. That's what the Instagram is mainly about, and also YouTube, which represents a video. And we all know that the fashion videos, it's something really, really cool, often really fun to watch. And I'll have some examples for top content for you. So starting with Facebook and fashion on Facebook, I think when it comes to Facebook, I think everyone who is present at the webinar probably already knows how Facebook is a hugely competitive platform nowadays. And this massive competition, it's not about really just about fashion brands, again, fashion brand, but the fact that Facebook became so much cluttered and the average organic reach kind of decreased over the time, you can't really kind of see as a competitors only other brands in your industry, but from your point and from your goal, which is getting your content to a possible audience, to targeted audience that you might have to maximize your reach, then actually everyone else is the competition. It's, family, friends, celebrities, it's other brands, it's brands in different sectors, or any Facebook page when it comes to this is really, really a competitor of yours. Now, to kind of understand and to break this clutter or break this curse of decreased reach, it is possible. It's still about the content. Content is the king. It's about constantly kind of analyzing, measuring, and optimizing your social media strategy. It's also about really understanding the context of where you are as a brand. Now, if we look, I chosen a couple of benchmarks when it comes to Facebook. The average page size for a fashion brand is at this moment something like 350,000 fans. It's the average fan growth or the dynamics of the growth. I looked mainly on the relative one. It's the growth is approximately 9% tempo rate from the beginning of the year. When it comes to engagement, I kind of prefer to choose rather interactions than the engagement rate that I believe Vincent was asking for. The reason why is quite obvious. When it comes to Facebook, more and more content is being promoted, which means more and more the content is reaching non-fans. So kind of dividing the interactions by the number of fans is kind of losing the accuracy. As an accurate metric, I believe the total interactions can work pretty well, especially when you kind of anchor the data in the benchmarks, in your competitors, etc. So I would definitely recommend you to follow this path. Vincent is asking about the stats. These stats for the benchmark, I took these stats for the first quarter of this year. But the benchmarking, when it comes to our tool, when it comes to analytics, it's custom-based, so you can create a benchmark on a custom time range that you choose. Now, when it comes to frequency, when it comes to posting, the average admin post is 108 for 3 months, which makes it it makes something 1.2 posts per day, including the weekends. So we can say that if we have a look into what's the kind of a frequency post, it's slightly above the average when it comes to this. On the other hand, I would say that's one of the parts of the problem, that in general, brands are trying to fight the decreasing organic reach by producing more material. When I say it's all about the content, it's definitely about the frequency. It's more about the quality. Of course, if you want to reach a large portion of the audience, you are trying to find the best ratio of quality quantity, be able to post smart, be able to post quite frequently, and at the same time keep up a high standard of what you are doing. And where the fashion obviously is kind of lacking and falling down a little, it's the response rate to questions. We at Socialbakers, we've been always really big ambassadors of social media care. We have this socially devoted project. Definitely check it out. It's a standard. It became a standard for social media care. On the other hand, we do understand that the need by many brands or the demand of using social as a customer care channel, it's kind of depends on what industry are you. If you're a very consumer focused like telco or airlines or finance, you'll be probably using social as a customer care channel predominantly. If you are a fashion and auto, it depends. The brands tend to ignore a lot of questions. I think in general, whatever industry you are, you should be able to answer to your fans, especially when they ask. It has two levels of approach. One is really symbolical. You are kind of trying to build some bond with the people, get closer to them. The second one is actually quite practical. It's you are creating affinities, so you're kind of helping your edge rank possibilities. So definitely that's something to check out. Now, before I jump into the top performers, I'll just stop by. There is quite a lot of questions here popping up, so I'll try to answer at least some, and we can get back to others by the end. Now, there is a question. What to do with the organic reach if the brands have to always pay Facebook? Actually, I don't think that's a good logic. It's as I said, it's all about the content. Now, I think you want to promote for money and for ads, and social can be a really effective ad channel, but definitely promote the posts that are working organically well. You get to amazing results, and we can see if we see a post doing well organically, and if it's boosted by some ad spend, and it doesn't have to be a big budget, the effect it has, it's like really, really strong and really, really cool. What we see that doesn't work, promoting every post that you create on Facebook, and just don't caring whether it's a good post or bad post. That's the bad practice. That's you are wasting part of the money that you have. Definitely focus on a strong content, and when you have a strong content that is strong organically, and when you boost it with a little of the money, it really amplifies the the effect of this really, really strong. Now there is a question from Christine about the benchmarks, whether the fan growth is organic. When it comes to benchmarking, organic and paid, that's more about reach. It's not about becoming really fans. It's not a metric that would directly, that you could correlate with the interactions or the fan growth. Of course, to some effect, it might have an impact. I'll show you later on, what is kind of a campaign acquisition model for Facebook and how you can see it. Now, Ruslan, who had some troubles, he was asking about which brand's page this is. Ruslan, this is not one specific brand. This is the average for the fashion industry on Facebook. Now, Christine, reach, the organic reach is obviously the organic. Definitely track it when it comes to social media measurement. The only kind of issue is you're able to track what your own reach is, but when it comes to competitive analytics, you are of course not able to see these for the competitors. So you're not really able to benchmark it against other people. So let's jump into the top performers. I just chose two kind of qualifiers. One would be the fan growth, the other one would be the top interactions. And this data is for the first 4 months of this year, so it's a January to end of April data, which are showing the top 5 brands when it comes to fan growth on Facebook. Now, the top performers in this is, the first one is Michael Kors, followed by Converse, D Diamonds on the 3rd place. If someone doesn't know the D Diamonds, it's a jeweler. On the 4th place, there is another Converse page, this time from Mexico. And on the 5th place, as the fastest growing brand, is H&M. If we would talk or mention the other top brands, I decided to show up just 5, but the other brands in the top 10 are strong names. Actually, it's Calvin Klein, Victoria's Secret, Zara, Chanel, and Tiffany. So there is a lot of luxury brands also present there. And when it comes to total interactions, it's again Michael Kors on the first place. Then there is on the second kind of a fashion retail Stance Nation. Number 3 would be Veragio, engagement rings, obviously a jeweler. On the 4th, a Tiffany & Co. I believe I don't have to really talk about this brand. On the 5th, it's a Forever 21. Forever 21 is a brand that is really super active on social media. If we look into the other platforms, I'll be mentioning it a couple of times as well because they're doing a good job on other platforms. And that's quite interesting when we'll be going through these top performers, how the top 10s change. Some brands some brands are strong only on one platform or super strong on one platform, but there are some brands that kind of repeatedly are obviously doing a great strategy on a different channels. Again, if I would talk about the other brands that didn't fit into the top 5, I would definitely mention Victoria's Secret, a Brazilian brand, Loja Melissa. There is again the Converse from Mexico that we've seen in the previous slide. There is a H&M and Dolce & Gabbana. Now, when we look into top performing posts, we can see that Facebook is about kind of a quite traditional topics when it comes to posting. The most popular post, and it's the post that generated over 380,000 interactions. It's a February 9 post from Michael Kors, which is a post about New York Fashion Week that was taking place. So it's about kind of connecting your content to the fashion event. The second most performing post, as an example, would be a Tiffany. I think for talking about engagement, talking about brilliant matching people, that's something that is obvious that every jeweler should do, and apparently for a Tiffany it works. When we look at the third place, that would be a Bulgari. Again, kind of a very typical, a great opportunity to mention, to tie your content to something, to tie your products. This time it's St. Valentine's Day, kind of an obvious, a great term or great time range where to sell something when you're a fashion. Now, just to give you a context, I decided to include the 4th and 5th place too. As a 4th place, it would be a Spanish Panama Jack brand that is doing shoes. There is a quite of an interesting that's the only kind of a contest-based post. It's a contest post asking, encouraging people to comment with the possibility to win shoes, and kind of deciding which range, which color is the better. You can also see when you look deeper into the interactions, obviously comments are driving the interaction part really strong. And the 5th place, it would be a great kind of a type of content, and we'll be talking about a typology a little bit later. It's from Chanel, backstage photo from Grand Palais, and spring summer collection. So that would be an example of a top performing post on Facebook. And from Facebook, as you notice, I just decided to put there 2 slides on Michael Kors. That's the brand that kind of cross-check both the fan growth and follow growth, fan growth and the total interactions. In both cases, having the 1st place. I just wanted to show you when we were talking about the reach, about paid, organic. Some metrics are kind of a campaign-based. That's a lot about pushing the ads and spending smart, doing acquisition, or just driving engagement on a paid basis. Some are kind of a long-term metrics. I decided just to show you one thing. It's quite interesting, a difference between the evolution of fans and daily interactions. So we can see that it's quite nice to set it in the time range. If you see this area, which has the highest interactions, that was when there was a New York Fashion Week, February. And exactly after that, you can see how the acquisition campaign started. It's kind of connected to the fact that, of course, Michael Kors, they do have a kind of a Kors Spring Getaway collection. They also presented fall collection at the Fashion Week. They are driving it, apart. This is not something that would be necessarily driven by the social, by the content of the social, as you can see here, except some great posts during the Fashion Week. The interactions, and something that really is Michael Kors is doing great, is kind of a spread over the whole period. You can't see really some faults except of weekends when they obviously don't post so much, but it's something what I call a long-term engagement. Compared to that, you have this kind of interesting waves of kind of activating people through different channels, focusing mainly on fan growth. Now, fan growth and fan acquisition. When I'm talking about acquisition, I mean a legal one. I'm not talking about buying fans. That's something that is utterly, stupid and wrong. But it's a lot about kind of getting awareness, trying to read something like that. Now I have a question from Diana, who is asking, if you can get more fans and more interactions at the same time. Definitely you can. It's a lot about the different type of content you post. If your strategy is, get more fans, you probably drive it through the content. You're trying to get it. You're trying to push it a lot through paid. Now, but it doesn't have to be the case. I don't think really getting a huge amount of fans should be the ultimate goal. If it's the right audience, then sure. On the other hand, what's the wrong way, and we know it's this obsession by fans, obsession by the numbers, when brands will go crazy about this and trying to just get as many fans as possible. I think this period is over. Now it's more about having a kind of your core audience, making sure that your fans are, if not your current customers, it's the target segment of your potential customers. That's the thing that you should be thinking about a lot. If I jump from Facebook to Twitter, so we move on, I think, think about Twitter and fashion. Twitter has historically been seen as slightly kind of a secondary channel to many fashion brands. There are many reasons behind this. One obviously is Twitter is not necessarily strong in every country. There are some countries where Twitter is, a mainstream social networking platform. In some countries, the audience on Twitter is a lot techy, a lot geeky, very specific. So that might be one reason. Another reason, obviously, is, fashion is a lot about the visual. It's about kind of a product-led content. And when you compare the possibilities that you had on Facebook when it comes to visualizing, when it comes to posting, and on Twitter, kind of a lot of fashion brands prefer to stay on Facebook rather than go to Twitter. So if we look at the kind of a benchmarks, we can see that average profile size is obviously smaller than on Facebook. There is not so many fashion brands on Twitter. On the other hand, there are really a lot of brands that are really active. And you can see that the amount of the audience that the Twitter is getting is really fast compared to Facebook, where the growth has been some 9%. This is almost double. One thing is that the Facebook is to some part a saturated market, saturated social media platform. On the other hand, it's also about that the fashion brands are kind of rediscovering the Twitter, moving into this space, playing around and finding, and many of them are really finding that they are doing a great job and they're having some good successes there. Now, just to give you some benchmark information, of course, that relate to, again, a specific API, specific jobs, depends. Average mentions on Twitter for the 3 months would be something over 10,000 per fashion brand. When we look into the activity, we can see that fashion brands are more active on Twitter when it comes to posting. I think it's one of the reasons is obviously that Twitter can handle more frequent posting than Facebook. It's not something that we would have to be surprised. But what is quite great is that obviously fashion brands are finding enough content to push. Ruslan, he's asking, this is the question that appeared here quite often. For the benchmarking, the time range we chose is the Q1, so it's the January to April, to give you idea. When it comes to the top performing content and brands, we expanded it for April, so that would be January to April. So benchmarking Q1, the top performers January to end of April, which answers also Gelati, who is asking the same question. So hope it is clear now. Now, when it comes to top performers per follower growth, probably the first thing that struck me is there is quite a difference between top brands on Facebook and Twitter, and we can kind of see it quite clear on this follower growth chart. The top brands on Twitter are much more luxury brands. It's a haute couture compared to a lot of kind of a retail or high street fashion brands that you can see on the Facebook. And this is not only about about top 5. If we would expand it in the top 10, in the other 5, you'll find, Armani, you'll find Versace, you find their Burberry, you find their Calvin Klein. So the structure of the most popular brands currently is slightly different, which is quite an interesting thing. Now, as similar it is with total interactions, although on the first side it's not so clear when it comes to these brands, but still luxury is doing a very good job on Twitter. The Burberry, Chanel, Tiffany, Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, and there are also some fashion designers that are having a great social media strategy on Twitter and on their own profiles. If I would mention two, I would say Roberto Cavalli has really strong social media presence, and Christian Louboutin is doing a great job. So definitely, if you are looking for for inspiration, definitely go and check these brands out. Now there is a question from Sophie, why I think it's more fashion brands, why there is more luxury on Twitter versus Facebook. I kind of think that on Facebook you have this huge mix, huge amount of fashion brands, a lot of smaller brands, or a lot of kind of retail brands, or a lot of high street brands has been active really early on Facebook. So they came there much earlier on Twitter, and they succeeded really well. When it comes to Twitter, it has been discovered on a much slower basis, and quite surprisingly, it's been taken quite seriously by luxury brands. What we have to say, of course, is that the number of active brands on Twitter is kind of smaller there are more brands on Facebook, more fashion brands on Facebook than they are active on Twitter, but still it's a segment that is really strong. Now Elena is asking, would we count there for the interactions? In case of Facebook, when I was talking about it, obviously likes, comments, and shares. In case of Twitter, we have their favorites, we have their retweets, and we have their replies. So these three types of interactions. But of course, you can track also a general mentions. However, mention is not necessarily an interaction to some content that the brand posted or the activity. So that's the reason why I decided to keep their rather replies. When it comes to top performing tweets, the most popular tweet was by Adidas Now label, Justin Bieber saying, with the competition with Justin, obviously Justin Bieber has a strong social media following, no doubt about that, and it's a clear driver of success of this tweet, of the most popular tweet. The second most popular would be a kind of a standard thing that works for Chanel, and I think it pretty. What is great about a lot of luxury brands on social is social tends to change a brand voice, an actual brand voice to many brands. But the luxury brands are kind of keeping the logic same. The post that they are posting is exactly in spirit of this brand, what you would expect from that brand. And the followers quite appreciate this fact. And it's something that is really good to be consistent when it comes to social media strategy. Now, the third most performing is another celebrity, David Beckham. And this is kind of one of the things that many fashion brands do. And, it's a logical step, using celebrities to drive success on social. And it's super strong, especially when the celebrities themselves have a strong social media following. Both David Beckham, both Justin Bieber were always active guys, were always strong on social. So when you kind of include such a celebrity into your campaign, of course it costs you money, but it gives you a visibility, and at the same time you are amplifying whatever you do on social, because usually you are then kind of leveraging also their own social media community. So when you are acquiring Justin into the campaign, you are also obviously acquiring the huge following he has. Now, I just kind of put a fun slide with the Wordcloud for the fastest growing Twitter brands. You can see just from the first point, they love to talk about them, which is absolutely fine. But it's if you are a fashion brand, you can get very easily through it. If you follow it with a different industry, it will be about something different. But that's the kind of benefits of being really or truly being a loved brand. Now, I'll move into Instagram, which is a really probably strongest platform or strongest growing platform for fashion brands. It's obvious. It's a very visual platform. It's very strong with this. And the fashion brands are really huge. Instagram, it's, as I said, highly visual platform where fashion brands really can get creative with image effects, with videos. Some do with filters, although as it comes with the Instagram, most brands are, of course, preparing carefully the photos and uploading them with the normal filter. It's something that we can see in many brands. It's not only fashion. You can see this with automobile. You can see it with others. Now, Instagram has on average the kind of a highest number of followers. The average page size is really, really big. Now the reason is also for this, you don't have so many small fashion brands or fashion boutiques or really small companies so so active and so much followed on Instagram. So of course this is slightly distorting it. On the other hand, if you look at the large pages that are there, if you look at the large brands or global brands, they are somehow super strong. Now the same thing, you can see how dynamically it's growing. It's growing 35% per quarter, which is huge. Same thing applies for average total interactions. It's just imagine the number. It's like 3,400,000, which is almost unbelievable. It also gives you kind of an average admin post, which is just a really lot of photos. Some brands are just sending dozens of photos daily, which is something really crazy. That would definitely wouldn't work on Facebook, definitely wouldn't work on Twitter. However, it works for Instagram. Now, Gilati is asking if it's for the whole period, the average. Yes, that's the amount for the whole period. Now, when it comes to top performers on Instagram, as I said, it's a great place to focus for fashion brands. There is a lot of big brands, a lot of young brands too. It's kind of a mix of luxury, it's a mix of retail, it's a mix of young, trendy kind of brands. When we look at the follow growth, the strongest growing in the first quarter was Forever 21, which is a great brand, and we could see it already in the tables. I believe on Facebook when it comes to interaction. So it's a brand that is active on various platforms and doing obviously a good job with a good adapting their social media strategy for each channel. Then we have their Victoria's Secret, we have their H&M, we have their Louis Vuitton, who is doing a great job. We have their Michael Kors again. When it comes to total interactions, the brands that we can see is kind of a lot of similar brands. It's Brandy Melville on the first place, driving some incredible 40 million interactions. Forever 21, Victoria's Secret, Aeropostale, Hollister, many other big brands. As I said, there are, apart from the brands that I've been just showing you, there are fashion designers like Christian Louboutin, there is Topshop, there are brands like Vans, or or there are brands like Urban Outfitters, Abercrombie and Fitch. A lot of active brands are in these places. Now, when we look into top performing Instagrams, it's quite surprisingly, the top performing gram on Instagram is a video. It's a video from a Billabong. Instagram is not primarily a video platform. When I look personally in the long term on performance of photos and images versus videos on Instagram, the photos are working better for me. What a nice surprise. It's a quite fun video. I'm not going to try to play it, but definitely check it out. Check out the Billabong Instagram and play it yourself. It's just, it will get you from snow to the ocean, and it's quite fun. Vincent was asking if the brands post the pictures in one go per batch or spaced out during the day. The best practice in general is to space it out, somehow phase it. You don't want to just imagine how annoying is it when you are following some channel and suddenly your feed on Instagram on your phone and it's just full of one type of messages from one brand. So definitely space it out. The second top performing Instagram, it's from Mulberry. They have a model, Arizona Muse, visiting Mulberry Bond Street, showing kind of a tank top model with their product, no doubt about it. This has been, as you can see, it had some 365K interactions. Again, a huge number. Again, a content that is really working strong. And if you would maybe first look at it, it wouldn't strike you, but apparently a great post to post. A third is post just as a kind of a humble gram showing, the venue at Alexander's McQueen's, runway show. Again, kind of a gentle post, but obviously Andrew McQueen has such a strong kind of a following that it just arises so much interaction, so much drive, which is fun. And I looked, as I said, Forever 21 was doing like a really great job, both in follower growth as well as in total interactions. I just kind of for fun have a look at the Wordcloud. If you playing with Wordclouds, it's kind of a great fun, especially if you do it with a lot of brands. You can kind of get the idea what's the wording they use, which words, how they fit. If you compare it with their official messaging, it's a great, kind of a great source of insights for some deeper analytics. And last platform that I'll quickly cover before I pass the word to my colleague Michaela, who will drive you through some best practices, is YouTube. Now, the average on YouTube is 300 subscribers. Kind of a subscriber, you can't really equal it necessarily to a fan or a follower. It's a bigger commitment on YouTube. You're kind of subscribing to a future content. People don't tend to do it so easily as on other platforms, so that could explain this. Now, when it comes to the subscriber growth, it's quite good. It's 16% for the quarter. That's quite a kind of a nice thing. Now, when it comes to like-dislike ratio, as you know, YouTube is the only platform which we've shown today that allows kind of a dislikes. It's always good when you're looking at the interactions, have a second look and have a kind of a like-dislike ratio, because you can easily make angry people on social. Not every interaction is necessarily the interaction that you're going after. On average, that's not the case of the fashion brands, 89% likes compared to some 11% of dislikes. Now, average new videos that have been posted for the quarter, it's 80, which is quite good. It means a lot of brands are coming with a lot of content. Average video length is 132 seconds. On the other hand, there is a lot of fashion brands that have a super short portion of videos. There are a lot of brands who post, 15-second video. Definitely just a small sneak peeks teasers, kind of working with the video as just a kind of a photo, which is kind of a really fun. Definitely, the length is quite interesting, and I'll show you now some, after I show you just kind of a top subscriber list, I'll show you some top performing content, 5 examples of videos where you can see kind of a different approach the brands can have on YouTube when it comes to content. Now, when I have a look at the subscribers, we can see kind of a interesting mix of, kind of a skaters, snowboarders, type of a surfer brands with a pure luxury, a lot of luxury brands, a lot of kind of a sport fashion or very casual fashion. Now the strongest channel, to some, maybe not surprisingly, on YouTube is Victoria's Secret, a great big brand, which is also actually the channel with the highest growth. Now, since the time is pushing us, I'll just show you this and jump into the content, which is kind of a fun. Last, 5 examples, and then we would do a short, just an overview, and I would pass the presentation to my colleague Mikhail, and she'll be happy to kind of drive you with some best practices. Now, the first YouTube video that ranked a lot was the Lacoste. Because of the connection, I don't want this webinar to terminate because of some technical difficulties. I'm not going to play the videos. We don't have time for it either, but definitely check them out on YouTube. The video from Lacoste, it's a big leap, kind of a making equation between the huge leap and first kiss. Super sweet story to tell. With Lacoste, definitely check it out. It's a great example of kind of a taking a topic or taking a theme that can address to almost everyone and kind of tying your brand with it and the values that you want to present. So definitely check it out. Now the second most the most interactive video. I decided that's something I forgot to tell you. When I was making the top videos, I decided to go rather than by number of views, which are of course heavily influenced by advertising. I decided to go by the top interactions. So these are the top 5 the most engaging videos. Now, when it came to the second one, it was a North Face. North Face is kind of a outdoor function fashion, moving with this video into more of a Red Bull space of some extreme things, but it's a theme that can be really easily associated with this brand. It's quite a long video, 6 minutes, but I believe it's kind of worth to see. I was sometimes like really scared when I saw some footage. It's about Alex Honnold, with no ropes, no safety, climbing El Sendero Luminoso rock or mountain in Mexico. So definitely check it. It's quite fun. And again, a different kind of approach to the story that you want to tell, but definitely worth watching. Now, there is the third most engaging was a to Z of dance made from Diesel, which is kind of a fun. It reminded me the evolution of dance video that been viral. If you haven't seen it, about the kind of 100 years of London fashion. This approach from Diesel is slightly different, taking you from A to Z per letters and different dancing styles. Definitely check it out. Again, dance is some space that Diesel feels comfortable and absolutely makes sense. So another example, number 4, would be again a classical topic. Chanel, just a incredibly long video. It is almost 14 minutes, which is quite really big for for any YouTube type of a video. A classic fall winter 2014-15 show, showing models, showing their merchandising, and kind of driving this. Now, number 5, it's from Van Cleef and Arpels, which is a luxury watchmaker, a fashion. Another kind of a great example of a different approach of video. This is a 3D video of a product of the watches. If you are not familiar with SIHH, it's Salon International de l'Horlogerie. I hope I pronounce it right. It's one of the 3 biggest kind of a watch, luxury watch events. So again, this is the opening video for this from Van Cleef and Arpels, something that definitely works. Now I'll just jump over the Wordcloud and do kind of just a one-slide summary of the typology of the examples of fashion posts. You can see it's a lot of things that you can use. It's about using highly visual content. It's about your products and about your merchandising, and this is something many industries can't afford. Some can. but definitely fashion is one of those that can. What is great thing, asking questions generally works. With the fashion brands, it always works, asking opinions on asking for ideas for a new range, or even if it's about which kind of a color version they like. That's something we've seen a lot, something that is big. It's also about encouraging users to post their pictures of what they wear from the fashion range. A great thing, especially for kind of a high street fashion or retail fashion. There you can see it like really, really big. It's a competition-based posting. Whatever you think about it, it does work for many brands. And, everyone wants to have a free fashion goodies. So people are pretty happy to take part in the contest. What fashion industry does a lot, it's kind of associating yourself with celebrities, celebrity endorsement, kind of a gossip things. Definitely I would include events and kind of a backstage sneak peeks and some exclusive footage. That's something that has been working really great, amazingly. Okay, that's kind of my part. I'll be happy to answer some questions at the end of this webinar. What I will do now, I would switch to my colleague Mikhail that will take you over through her presentation. So give me just a second. I'll just switch to her presentation. I unmute her and mute myself and talk to you later with the questions and answer session. So, Mikhail, please. Go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mikhail Comrie, as Rudolph mentioned. I actually joined Socialbakers from the brand side at Abercrombie & Fitch. And now I am an account manager for Socialbakers Professional Services, which is the consultancy and analysis unit of Socialbakers. So we deliver custom solutions to brands looking to expand their social media understanding and reach. So we'll help brands develop key strategies around social media, aggregate their data sets across listening, analytics, and web traffic tools, and draw actionable insights, and really educate them on what their competitors are doing and how they can improve their social media performance. So I'll take you through a couple of fashion best practices. So if we go to the next page, the key to your social media strategy should be understanding your brand story and how that fits in with the overall content marketing strategy. So maintaining a clear voice and continually providing a consistent message. Next, it's engaging your fans and your target audience. So in the fashion industry, a picture is worth 1,000 tweets. As Rudolph mentioned, there's an importance of posting visually stimulating content to promote product offerings. And the visual networks tend to be the most powerful social media platforms, in large part because of the product-related conversations on Instagram, for example. They're mostly organic. They're not driven by brands, but emerging from people. You really want to tailor your message to fit your audience. You have to know what type of people are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and tailor your message so that it speaks to different key interests. Michael Kors, for example, presents a combination of luxe product and lifestyle shots on his Instagram page, while Pinterest albums include topics like style icons, Michael's style tips, and a history of American style, things that are more instructional. Kate Spade New York offers Facebook exclusives on the wall while tweeting day in the life adventures with a special hashtag. Mixed media, by adding strategic messaging and using hashtags, is extremely important. So get a small listening subscription, see a word cloud, and find the words that people are talking about. If you use more relevant hashtags, you have more opportunity to expand your reach. And lastly, develop creative storytelling strategies specific to the platform and measure that success. The goal of social media is to target a clear customer and tell a story that appeals to that person. So understand their lifestyle and provide content that is helpful or instructive, and find a way to inject yourself into their lifestyle. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you a couple of examples of brands that are doing social well. You'll see on the next slide there's a couple of photos. So the first being Club Monaco. So they have become a lifestyle brand. They're mixing product photos with aspirational lifestyle brand pieces and home decor items. They're even tweeting and posting about bloggers wearing their items. A lot of times we'll have brands that are interested in understanding their fan overlap between a blogger, a celebrity, and a brand. So we can go in and sort of analyze what that particular strategic partnership should be, if it's better to go with a celebrity or a blogger. If you go to the right and look at Everlane, this is a product-focused post, and it's a good one because it gives you an outfit and paints the full styling picture for the audience. Brands are posting this kind of photo quite frequently. And then Free People in the bottom right-hand corner. This is a gorgeous lifestyle shot. It's a nod to festival season, which is the key interest of their loyal fashion following. So if we go to the next slide, I will talk about some of a case study for a large fashion brand. So we begun doing a social media audit. So this analysis took place over the course of 6 months, where we analyzed the size and dynamics of the community, so the fans and the followers, the level in which fans and followers interact with the content, so the engagement, the activity of the admin and users, so the posts, where we'll analyze the optimal times to post to encourage the most engagements. And a lot of times brands choose to close their profiles. However, comments can be a really valuable source of feedback and a method of building strong relationships with fans. So brands aligned topics in particular can drive comments and really start conversations. We'll also measure the level of responsiveness of the page, so that's the response rate and the time, and of course top content. So moving to the next slide, we will begin the social media audit with an executive summary. So the setup is we create a global or regional, so in the US for this case, fashion benchmark. And that can be comprised of whatever competitors or industries that you deem important. And it's really demonstrating the average social media performance in the industry. In this case, we analyze performance on Facebook and Twitter with the goal of outlining strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the brand's monthly and quarterly social media performance. And then we establish key areas for improvement, so then they can then monitor those areas in separate reports in the upcoming months. So as we move to the next slide, we'll begin with a Facebook analysis. So this looks at 6 brands with various KPIs across each column. This brand was particularly interested in looking at the actual metrics, but we definitely can do trends. So we looked at fans, fan growth as a percentage, engagement rate, which is a function of your interactions over your fan base, number of posts, interactions, your posts by your admins, the response rate, the time it took for response, and then the number of questions posted. So if you look at brand 1, they have the highest fan population and growth, fan growth at 2%. They're leading in terms of interactions, however not engagement rate. And this is largely because the fan base is so large. So they post fairly regularly compared to their competition. And they have 100% response rate to the 1 question asked. So alternatively, brand 3 has the most engagement, but falls in the middle of fan size, but it's growing at the 2nd highest rate. This shows that their audience, albeit mid-size, is engaging with their content at a higher rate. This leads me to begin talking about a loyalty report, which I'll go into later, but we'll analyze the active fans, so those fans that are regularly interacting with the content, which helps to establish brand loyalty. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you what comprises the fashion benchmark. So if we see, it's divided by a global outlook and then individual country benchmarks. So the huge, large, medium, and small correlates to the size of the Facebook fan page, so small being up to 15,000 fans, medium 15,000 to 100,000, large anywhere between 100,000 and 1 million, and then huge is over 1 million. So this benchmark is made up of pages that are much more active than what we saw on the previous slide, and in turn the benchmark has much higher fan growth and engagement, and in some cases the admin is even posting more frequently. This highlights the importance of consistently engaging with your fan base and posting compelling content. So if we go to the next slide, we'll look at what we did for Twitter. And what stands out here to me is looking at brand number 3, because people are actually unfollowing. They have relatively low engagement rates relative to their peers, and they could post a lot more often. So we really encourage brands to consistently be a part of their users' feeds. So if we continue to the next slide, we'll show the Twitter benchmark. And I think what's interesting here is how much lower the average response time on Twitter is than Facebook. So it's 40% compared to 68% on Facebook. This is because there are many more questions asked on Twitter, 72 questions versus 16. So if you want to improve your response rate and time, Twitter should be a strong focus of your customer care strategy. So going to the next page, I'll show you a summary of what we presented to this brand. We kind of summarized that the page growth was slow. When looking at engagement rate across Facebook, it decreased, and this is due to a reduction of visually attractive mood posts. And on Twitter, it increased slightly, but there was really very little action around admin tweets. So most of the Twitter activity was around mentions. We also looked at active fans, but there were no questions asked on Facebook because it was closed. They did do a good job of reacting to Twitter mentions. Looking at admin activity, they were definitely less active on Facebook, and tweeting decreased over time. So our recommendation for this brand was to post regularly and look for opportunities to try and connect dress reviews with call to actions or easy to agree mottos. So moving on to the next slide, we'll show Facebook activity more acutely. So if you look at the arrow, there's a peak on September 8th when the community grew by 17 fans. But when looking at interactions, it was pretty low at that time period, so it's probably not connected to the post published on that day. The engagement rate was negatively influenced by the irregular posting, and therefore the reach of the posts was extremely low. And the absence of strategy and planning when to post is making it difficult to gather interactions and extend the reach of posts. Now if you look at the second graph, the curve of the 30-day average decreased through most of the period, as the posts were not engaging as the previous month. It only started to go back up at the end of September, and this was largely thanks to mood posts that were published at that time. Similar pieces of content proved to gather interactions in the past. So as we move on to the next slide, we'll show Twitter activity. We'll actually show key posts on Facebook. So we break it down by likes, comments, and shares, and then show why it was successful. In some cases, it was mood posts in the form of quotes. It was a preview of the new collection. Celebrity endorsements have proved to be really strong. And the page could try promoting a brand-related post with engaging messaging by paid media. So as we move to the next page, now I'll show Twitter activity. The brand actually gained 17 new followers in September. There were no major peaks, and the daily change was mild. However, the growth remains very slow on some days, and the balance is negative. The profile should try to drive follower growth, which is the best long-term solution, offering value-added content such as sneak peeks, special offers, or fashion tips. There are actually only 3 direct mentions and no questions. The profile responded to the relevant content and the tone of voice very friendly. The average response time was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Even apart from the direct mentions that are displayed in the chart, the profile reacts to the mentions by other profiles, which is good. It addresses, the tone is always very nice. It shows care and interest in the celebrities, partners, and all the other fans. So if we go to the next page, we'll give recommendations. So the biggest area of opportunity was in improving question response time and regular posting and tweeting, as I mentioned. It's really important to maintain engagement and consistently be a part of your users' feeds. You're trying to increase involvement, loyalty, and engagement. There should be a more frequent use of call to actions in order to drive more interactions, and asking fans about their opinions, experiences, and preferences, really creating a dialogue and being able to receive feedback. So as we transition to the next slide, I'll show some infographics that we actually do for fashion brands. I believe that these are really helpful because it gives employees a top-level perspective of what's happening on social in a very easy-to-read way. I find that it helps people recall the information better because it's presented in a way that fits how they think about business solutions. So this infographic is from a beauty and fashion brand that we worked with, where we analyzed their fan population and engagement rate by country. And if you go to the next slide, you'll actually see interactions. They had a very different strategy by country. So they wanted to understand what countries were driving each individual KPI. And in terms of number of fans, the United Kingdom is definitely their biggest share. So if we go to the next slide, we'll show fan growth and engagement rate by country as well, with the biggest fan growth coming from Germany and the largest engagement rate coming from Sweden. So moving on to the next slide, we'll show interactions, also segmenting interactions across regions, looking at the UK being the largest driver as well. And this chart is segmented by the share of likes, comments, and shares. Likes generally getting the majority of the interactions. Moving on to the next slide, we'll look at response rate also by region. At Socialbakers, we generally consider 65% to be your level of social devotion. And for the most part, most of the countries are revolving around this 65%, but there definitely is improvement. So if we go to the next slide, I'll show you a loyalty report, which I spoke about a little bit in the beginning. So going to the loyalty report, this really analyzes the loyalty of fans and their tendency to return to the page to repeatedly comment and or post. It's based on the responsiveness of the page, the quality of posting. So you want to have balanced posting, but then variability in post types and themes. And then we'll also show you the most and least successful posts. Moving on to the next page, it really shows how the unique users are interacting with the page in the following weeks after their first interaction. And we'll visualize this in a heat map. In this case, it revealed that the majority of fans have never interacted with the page, and there is significant improvement in effective targeting strategies to customer segments. So moving on to the next slide, you'll actually see the heat map. So in this case, 55% of the fans never interacted with the page. And the number who actually interacted fluctuated between 20 to 30%. Since then, the improved posting and resulting interactions led to a rise of interactions of active fans reaching 40%. The time period from December of 2013 to February of this year, the number of new interactions was higher than before the number of those who interacted. This has been achieved through more regular posting as well as interesting and attractive content. And if you look at the graph on the bottom, you'll see a bar graph of active fans over time. So on February of 2014, there were 10,000 active fans, but only 40% of those are fans who interacted before. And then the next slide I'll show you is just the 20 most active users by number of posts and comments. So those are your key influencers. And then it'll show you the number of times that they commented or posted The colors here aren't really registering, but there was very little posts. Most of the activity was around comments. So that's just showing you a couple of case studies that we've done for companies in the fashion industry, and there's definitely more insights that we can draw, but a lot of our strategies are structured around really helping brands to understand how they can maximize and optimize their content and understand what's going on in the competitive landscape. We deliver solutions that educate you throughout that process. So I'll turn the discussion back over to Rudolph, and we can answer any questions that you all have at this time.
Thank you, Mikhail, for the great, deep insights. We have here some questions. What I will always do, since we are, Mikhail is sitting now in New York, so I'll always read the question, then mute myself, and we'll let you answer. So hold on for a second. The first question here was Louis is asking for advice if managing a page with international audience. If it's a better idea, to focus on a kind of a country language specific posts, or if it's better to post, publicly and don't target the posts. And what would be the best kind of a way to get organic reach? Mikhail, can you go ahead?
Rudolph, do you want to answer this question?
Okay, I'm not sure if Mikhail heard us, so I'll repeat the question. There is a question from Louis who is asking what you think it's a better practice, if it's about targeting language-specific posts on Facebook, or if it's better to post in general.
I think it's definitely more beneficial to target your posts, and that comes from really understanding what content is going to best engage your following. So that takes a rigorous analysis of what engages those audiences, but I would say that targeting posts by language, region, around key interests is definitely beneficial to expanding your organic reach.
Great, thanks. I have another question, which is from Guy Powell. Guy is asking, he's really interested in if you can talk about how you can identify the most active fans that the brand, I believe it's the slide that you were showing. So if
identifying the active fans comes from looking at those fans who are regularly engaging with your content. So the heat map just shows the share of active fans that are regularly engaging. I didn't hear the end of the question. I don't know if Rudolph, you can.
Hi, Mikhail. It's actually, if you can identify the most active fans, so the brand can reach out to them directly, even on a kind of a competitive sites.
Thank you, Rudolph. Sorry. Yes, we do identify the most active fans, which we call key influencers. So we'll give you the names of those, so you theoretically could reach out to them.
Right, then there is a question being asked from Diana, who is joining us from Ecuador, and she's asking if you have some general recommendation for enterprises that just began at the fashion market and they are starting with social. What to avoid, what to focus.
I think that you definitely need some sort of analytics tool. You need to understand what your competitors are doing, what's working well, and what's not working, so that when you do post, if you don't have a large enough team, that you're posting smart, that you're posting content that's worth your while and that's going to trigger engagement. And then you can kind of start to build traction, engage your audience, and really create brand loyalists.
Great, thanks for answer. And we are 20 minutes over time. Let's do, let's say, last two questions. I'm sorry for that we didn't have a time to come back to all the questions. I think we are more than happy. Please do a follow-up. We've been recording this webinar, and we'll be, doing a follow-up, so you can check it, and please feel free to contact us. I'll just use the fact that I have Mikkel here for me, Mikkel. So there is another question from Martin. And he's asking, aside from the platforms that were covered, what are the other platforms that you recommend as the best platforms for social media, whether it would be Pinterest or if it would be something else? I gave kind of my view on this at the beginning, so Mikkel, tell me.
I definitely think Pinterest is a key area of focus for fashion brands. It's definitely growing at insanely high amounts. I think there's actually been a lot of studies linked to Pinterest driving sales. It definitely helps users upload their own content, user-generated content, and really helps fans gauge around the individual product. So I think Pinterest should be a huge area of focus, and definitely Instagram as well. And our tools will definitely help you monitor that activity.
And a last question for Mikkel. It's a question from Christine that she asked some time ago. I think it's a great question. And I think from my experience, many people are confused about it, and it's quite a common question, so I'm happy to include it. It's whether you think it's a good idea to post message automatically on different channels. So take a message, post it the same message on Facebook, then Twitter, Instagram, or something like that. So if you can talk about this.
I definitely think it's important to post across platforms. It just helps to expand your reach. Some people are more active on one network over the other. But I also think it's really important to stagger that posting strategy so that if people are following you on all platforms, that you're not overloading their feed. And our builder tool actually allows you to really do that, and you can schedule your post times. I think that's the key to making sure that you're continuing to engage your follower base, your fan and follower base, so that they know that they might be able to get photos on Instagram, videos on Vine, product-related things on Pinterest, promotions on Facebook. It's definitely about having a varied approach, strategically targeting each of those different segments.
Okay, great, Mikkel. Again, it was great to having you on and giving the hosting your professional services experience with specific campaigns. Now, thanks a lot for attending. Obviously, we stayed over the time. Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you here as a host. I'm sure it was a equally pleasure for Mikkel. Now, I definitely would encourage you to go onto socialbakers.com or analytics.socialbakers.com. You can get a 14-day free trial, so definitely check it out. If you have some important question that you feel we didn't cover, or if we just couldn't get into because of the time pressure, feel free to mail me. And if you feel you have some inquiry for Mikhail, or if you would be interested in Socialbakers professional services helping you, definitely get in touch with her. Now, as I said before, this webinar is being recorded. We'll be doing a follow-up. Just give us 2-3 days to process the video, and we will send it out. So if you want to share it with your colleague, you can, or if you want to just watch it over, or if you missed a part, definitely you are welcome to, and we'll definitely share this with you. It's great to have you, so much of you here still 30 minutes, almost 30 minutes after we're supposed to end. Great again. Thanks for taking part in the webinar. Check out what Socialbakers does. We are planning another webinars on different topics, so keep in touch. We'll be happy to have you at our webinar next time. So thanks a lot, guys, and have a great rest of your day. As I said, we'll follow up on